What's up YouTube, it's your boy Miss Pyromaniac back again with another video. Diablo 4 has introduced many new players into the ARPG genre. It was Blizzard's best selling game of all time, and so I decided to make this video. I basically want to introduce players to other ARPGs other than Diablo 4 because I think there's a variety of games. We have some options now in the ARPG genre. We didn't always have these options, and so here we are. Today I'm going to be comparing Diablo 4 with Last Epoch, and hopefully you may play Last Epoch or Diablo 4 depending on what you like. Alright, to start off, let's talk about the technical things like the graphics. The graphics in Diablo 4 look much better than Last Epoch, I'll just say it. Last Epoch's graphics are very mid. They're not the best, they're not the worst. But Diablo 4, the graphics are just phenomenal. By far, Diablo 4 has the best graphics in any ARPG out there. I mean, the whole world looks amazing, and every zone is represented differently, and it's just overall very beautiful. It's just a masterpiece graphically wise. Let's go into the story. The story of Diablo 4 is about demons and killing demons and going to hell. That's basically it, and it's an amazing story. The lore is phenomenal. There's a little lore series on YouTube also if you want to watch that. It's just amazing. They've been building this lore for years now. Diablo is well known. The characters are very memorable, especially the main characters. There were some very gruesome scenes. I really liked that. And Last Epoch, you basically travel in time and kill different enemies. That's basically it. Honestly, it's not that interesting of a story. The characters, not all of them are memorable. Definitely not like Diablo. So I'd say Diablo's 4 story is much better. Next up, just talk about the world. The world of Diablo, it's an open world. It's much different than Last Epoch. Last Epoch has different zones with different loading screens between each zone. It's not an open world. You can't just run around wherever you want. It's kind of more linear in that sense. Diablo 4, you got the open world. You have different events in the open world. You got the altars of Lilith that you need to collect. You got the strongholds. There are many different activities that you can do in the open world, and you can go wherever you want with no loading screens. To me, it's not the biggest thing in the world. I don't care if it's an open world or if it's a zone, as long as the gameplay is good. Okay, now let's talk about the character creation. Diablo 4 has a character creator. Last Epoch doesn't. You just choose your class, and there's a pre-created character that you play with for the different classes. In Diablo, you have the Barb, the Druid, the Necromancer, the Rogue, and the Sorcerer. In Last Epoch, is pretty much the same, but just different names. You have the Acolyte, the Sentinel, the Rogue, the Mage, and the Primalist. But the difference with Last Epoch is that you choose your class, and then each class has 3 different subclasses which you get to choose from. Diablo doesn't have that. Diablo, you just choose your class, and that's basically it. So you load up Diablo 4, you choose your character, you're in the game now, and you're level 1. So you go from level 1 to level 50. At each level, you get 1 skill point. After level 50, you start getting Paragon points instead of skill points. Now, the skill points, you use it for your skill tree, obviously. It's not a big skill tree. It's basically a twig. It's a very linear skill tree. Honestly, it's not complex. It's very simple, and you have to understand that it is meant to be that way. It is meant to be simple for a reason. After level 50, you unlock the Paragon board, and the Paragon board is basically this big board that has different blocks on it. Each block will give you a different buff. So one may give you +5 strength, one +5 dex, and so on and so forth. But some blocks are much more valuable in that they give you different bonuses that are just superior, like 10% close damage reduction, less time on your shouts if you're playing a Barb, and stuff like that. They're pretty meaningful upgrades that will help boost your character's strength. You can't cover the whole board. You path your way from the opening to the exit of the board, and then you attach another board, And you really have to think about how many points you're going to spend and which path you're going to take and what skills you're going to use. And to the point where you actually can rotate each board so you control where the exit is, where the glyphs are, where the entrance to the board is. And you start playing around with that, and you can attach about 6 boards. It's a really cool system. It's a very creative system. I really liked it. It added some complexity. It's not so complex to the point where you can't do it by yourself and you need to watch an hour-long YouTube video. No. You can do it yourself. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's very easy. Everything is written. It's very easy to understand. In Last Epoch, you also start at level 1, obviously. You work your way towards level 100. But each level gives you 1 passive point all the way through to level 100, unlike Diablo. In Last Epoch, you have 2 different skill trees. You have your class skill tree and then your subclass. It's just a skill tree. You put points into the skills and you progress through the skill tree. Eventually you unlock the other skill tree and you do the same thing. Now the difference between the skill trees in Diablo 4 and Last Epoch is the bonuses they give. In Diablo 4, the bonuses are very simple. You don't really have to think about it. The choices are obvious. You see 10 close damage reduction. Oh, I need damage reduction, so I'm going to take that. Oh, I need vulnerable damage, so I'm going to take that. Those are the types of bonuses in Diablo 4. In Last Epoch, you have a lot more options. The skill trees are much bigger. You have many more choices. But the most important thing is the bonuses that they give you. First of all, they don't all give you bonuses. Some points may give you bonuses and also nerfs. So you really have to think about if you want to invest into that point, and you have to change your build accordingly. And the skills in general are just a bit more complicated than Diablo. They require a bit more thinking. You can't just choose anything and be good. In Diablo 4, it's not that you can choose anything. It's very obvious what you have to choose to get stronger, you know? While in Last Epoch, it's a bit vague. You have to think about it and think about the different interactions between the skills and what's going to happen. Next, let's talk about the skills or your abilities that you use to do damage and all of that good stuff. In Diablo 4, you unlock the skills through your passive skill tree. You choose the different skills, you put points into those skills, and you unlock them. In Last Epoch, you don't put the points into the skill itself. It's just as you progress through the passive, you automatically unlock the skills. But the difference is upgrading the skills. In Diablo 4, you're just given one option to upgrade a skill. You either choose this node or this node, and you get the buff depending on that to your skill. But in Last Epoch, you can specialize in 5 skills. And each skill you specialize in, you will unlock a skill tree for that skill. So now you have a skill tree for each skill on your bar, in addition to the 2 passive trees. So that's a lot of skill trees. It's like 7 skill trees that you have to keep track of. I know it seems overwhelming. It is kind of overwhelming when you see so many options that you could choose from, but that's what I like. Different variety of options. That means that you can have more diverse builds. You have many more options. While in Diablo 4, you just have a few options and you know what you're going to choose. You don't really have to think about it. In Last Epoch, as I've said, it's more complex. It's definitely not the most complex thing ever. You don't need to use YouTube. I didn't use YouTube. I didn't use any of that. Everything is written in the game. There's explanations for every single skill in the game. And if you're really stuck and don't know what to do, you can either look it up or go to Discord and ask a question on their Discord if you really need to. But in general, I didn't find myself needing to do that. Let's talk about the skills themselves. How do they look? Now, some skills in Last Epoch are not the best looking, like the dash on the rogue. It feels off. They're not the smoothest animations, but some animations feel amazing in Last Epoch. Like my static orb, when I just throw it and it just explodes and the screen shakes, you can really feel it. In Diablo 4, The skills, I would say, in general, are much smoother. The feel, how you play with them, they're not as clanky as last Epoch. They feel smooth. You press the button, it does the skill, and it looks good. Next up, let's talk about itemization. And this is really where each game defines itself. In Diablo 4, the itemization is not that complex. It's kind of sad. I know Diablo 4 is a simple game and it's meant to be simple, but every single build, every single class is looking for the same affix. For each class, you are required to have vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage. That is basically all the affixes that you need. That is it, those 3 affixes. You need those on each class, on each build. So you can see a pattern here. There's no variety. The classes feel the same. How are the different classes supposed to feel different if I'm looking for the same thing on each class? Where's the variety in that? It's just, and if I want to use another affix, what other affixes do we have in Diablo? You have 10% damage increase to stunned enemies, 10% damage increase to dazed enemies, 10% damage increase to poison enemies, 10% damage increase to vulnerable enemies. Those are the affixes in Diablo. Like, seriously? Again, I know it's simple, but come on, Blizzard. It's just not fun. In last Epoch, you have so many different affixes, and you collect those affixes from the ground and you put them in your inventory. But you know what? They have a completely separate inventory. Oh boy, Diablo does not have that. They're not all the best, obviously, but there's much more variety here. Like, you'd use some affixes for some classes and builds are just trash. For other builds, they're just insane and you need them to make that build work. But those are the type of affixes that I like. Those are the type of affixes that you see in last Epoch. Affixes like this that just make you think, do I want to use this? Or how can I utilize this in my build? And it gets you thinking about the game and the different interactions with the game. And as you do that, you discover more affixes and more interactions, and it just keeps going. It's just different layers, and you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, let's talk about crafting. Crafting in Diablo 4 is very simple. You get your item. You can choose one affix on that item, which you can replace. You could pay more crafting materials, more gold, and you can change it another time, and another, and so on and so forth. But keep in mind, you can only change one affix on an item. In last Epoch, you could change everything in an item. You can change every single affix. You can remove an affix and add an affix. You can upgrade an affix. Now, you can't change the affixes and upgrade the affixes forever. That would be kind of broken. Each item has forging potential. It's basically the amount of the times that you could play with the item. So the customizability of the items in last Epoch is much cooler. It's much deeper. You have many more options. In both games, you obviously aim for the uniques. Those are considered the best items. In Diablo 4, most of the uniques suck. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna give it to you straight. They're pretty trash. Some of them are useful, but there are some really, really good uniques like Shaco, Harlequin Crest, and Dariel's Visage, all of that. But you know what the problem is? That they do not drop. Only a few people in the world have gotten those items. Can you imagine that? It's like Blizzard is not changing the drop rate on the items. It's insane. I don't know why they're doing this. It's just stupid. You're gonna play the game. Don't ever expect to get any of these items. Just don't expect it. You'd be lying to yourself. In last Epoch, the uniques that you can get can have legendary potential, or they may not have any legendary potential. What does it mean to have legendary potential? It means that you can add extra affixes to the item, making it even stronger. And that's something that you can create some really strong characters using that mechanic. And the way to upgrade it is really cool. You have to complete a dungeon first and delve deeper into the dungeon so you could upgrade the item. So you can't just go ahead and upgrade it. normally like you do any other item. It is a unique after all. But what's really cool about itemization in this game, and this is where Last Epoch completely destroys Diablo, is the stash. In Diablo 4, the stash is just character based. You can't trade items between different characters. In Last Epoch, you could trade any item with any of the characters that you have created. You just put the item into your stash, and then you log into the other character, and the item is there in the stash. That creates for insane replayability. So think about this. I make a rogue just so I can farm uniques. I make a specific rogue with a specific build so I can farm uniques. I get an insane unique with 4 legendary potential. Let's say it's a 2-handed hammer. And so I want to try it out. I put it in my stash. I create a new character. I create a sentinel this time so I could use this hammer. I level up a bit, I think to level 30 or 40, depending on the item. And I can equip it pretty early on. And I start playing with that unique and I start building around that item. And you know what happens? I find another insane unique, and then I create another character. And then another, and it just keeps going. You keep finding these items. Last Epoch is basically an item chase. The replayability is there for Last Epoch. In Diablo, there is no replayability. To me, I got to level 100, and then I just didn't want to do it again. There's no real reason to go to do all of that. The gameplay is gonna feel the same every single time. It doesn't feel different. That's the thing. In Last Epoch, every single character I created felt way different than the other characters. The builds, the variety, the type of gameplay, what I'm doing in the game, it's just different. In Diablo, it's the same old for every single character, and that's really the problem with Diablo right there. That's the core issue for Diablo. Unless they fix that, Last Epoch will be better. And then let's get into inventory. Inventory in Diablo goes like this. You do a dungeon, you get a shit ton of loot, maybe you do another dungeon, and now your inventory is full. Half of it is just gems, which you're never going to use, and the other half is just items. Most of them you don't need them, honestly. So you'd have to portal back to town and go through those items, selling them or salvaging them, depending on your needs. And then you go back and you do 2 more dungeons, and oh, your inventory is full again. How amazing. In Last Epoch, that's not the case. First of all your crafting materials and everything about crafting has a separate inventory, and the inventory space is much bigger in Last Epoch. You don't even need to port back to town to sell them because you'll have a ton of gold. First of all, you don't need the gold. Anything you may need from an item is an affix, and you can extract those affix in the dungeon. You don't have to do it in town or anything. You can do it wherever you want. So let's say I get an item, I get the affix I need from that item, and then I can throw that item away. That's it. There's no inventory clutter. My inventory is empty. All my materials are in a different stash, and I'm having fun. My gameplay is not being interrupted. In Diablo, my gameplay is just being interrupted every 10 to 20 minutes, just getting interrupted. It gets boring. It's not fun anymore. Last of all, let's talk about the endgame. In Diablo 4, the endgame consists of Uber bosses. We currently have Uber Lilith and Uber Vershan. And I think it's an amazing thing to have Uber bosses in an ARPG. It gives you an end game goal, a long-term goal you could call it. But yeah, looking forward to fighting Uber Lilith for the first time was a great experience, even though she destroyed me because she's overtuned, not because I'm bad. Okay. Other than the bosses, you have the nightmare dungeons, but let's be honest, nightmare dungeons, you basically do the same dungeon over and over and over, and they just increase the difficulty by basically giving the mobs more health and letting them do more damage, and that's not fun. That's not a way to increase difficulty, you know. I get it, you need to increase the health of the mobs so they scale with you, but there needs to be something else for the difficulty. At least give us some rewards. Like, Listen, this is the main point. Give us some rewards. You could see like Uber Lilith or Nightmare Dungeons, none of those give you any rewards. You're just doing them for nothing. You're just doing them for the experience of killing Uber Lilith, I guess. They drop no uniques. They don't increase the chances to drop anything. It's just, why is it in the game then? What's the whole point? The whole point in ARPGs is progression, working towards something. It's not there in Diablo. The end game in Last Epoch, however, there's much more activities that you could do. So let's take the main thing in Last Epoch is monoliths of fate. You go into this monolith and you start mapping. Okay, let me explain mapping first. So you have these different maps that you could choose from. Each map has a different reward that it could give you. So let's say you're looking for helmets. Your helmet is trash. So I go into the monolith and I look for maps that will reward me with helmets. Okay, I do the map and then I slowly start pathing through the monolith. And then I keep going and I unlock more maps and I start mapping slowly. But I know what I'm getting with each map. That's the point here. I know the different kinds of rewards that I'm going to get. And so I could target farm items. And later on, as you progress through the monoliths, you'll unlock more ways to target farm items. So if you're looking for bows, there's a whole monolith that gives increased chances to find bows in general. So you could target farm your items. That's the point. That's the main difference between Diablo 4 and Last Epoch's endgame, is that you actually get rewarded for the endgame activities that you do in Last Epoch. In Diablo 4, you don't get rewarded. In addition to monoliths, in Last Epoch, you also have dungeons which you unlock in the endgame. And lastly, you have the arena. It's basically waves of enemies that you keep on fighting. You could go on infinitely, fight infinite waves, or you could do 30 waves and then you fight a boss at the end and the boss drops uniques or whatever. It has increased chances of dropping items. But yeah, you could see that the end game for Last Epoch is much more diverse. There's many more options and you actually get rewarded for doing those activities, while in Diablo 4 not as many options. They're not that fun. They're basically the same thing. And you don't get rewarded for it. So endgame in Last Epoch is way better. In conclusion, I could see someone who coming back from work just wants to chill and relax, doesn't want to think about anything. So you would hop on Diablo and just kill mobs. That is it. I could see people enjoying that. It's just simple. You don't have to think about it. You're just there. It's kind of relaxing, honestly. Even though it has its problems, it's not the perfect game. It is a relaxing game. In Last Epoch, you have to do more thinking. You have to see how the different skills are going to interact with each other, what works, what's viable, is this viable, is this not viable, and you just have to work it out in your brain. And that's a different type of gameplay, and I honestly, in my opinion, personally, I like it. I like that type of gameplay. I like to think about my skills. My actions have consequences. Replayability wise, for $35, you get to replay this game over and over and over, and every time it's different and it's fun. But with Diablo, it's a $70 game, and is it really worth it? So you could kill Uber Lilith for one time and then you get bored of doing the same thing. In my opinion, it just isn't. But hey, that's just my opinion. That was about it for the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.